Welcome to John Gets Games. Today we're going to play a full two-player game of Xenoshyft Onslaught. This is a fully cooperative deck-building game where each player controls part of a base that's getting overrun by tons of crazy, bloodthirsty, insect-like aliens. The name of the game is Survival. You just want to last 9 turns, and while you're doing that, you're going to be building your deck and kind of building each other's decks at the same time. I'll explain how the game plays as I'm actually playing it, and at the end, I'll give you a couple opinions about how I'm feeling about the game at this point. Here's the item dashboard at the beginning of the game. As a disclaimer, this is the Kickstarter version of the game, but I'm only playing with base game components, so this will be how it looks like for you if you bought it at a store. On the left-hand side of the board, we see troops and Xenoxanthem, which is the money resource in the game, and it always looks like this every time you're going to play. There's no random variety here in the base version of the game. On the right-hand side, we see the items, and there are 9 here from 24 total that come in the game, so there's quite a bit of randomness that comes into play here. 2 of these cards were put in intentionally. That is the Spark Jumper Assault Rifle and the Med Pack, and that's because one player is going to be playing the Weapons Researcher, which forces the Spark Rifle, and the other player is going to be playing the Med Bay, which forces the Med Pack to be in the starting set. The other 7 cards were randomized. On the left-hand side, we see a turn track, and it starts at 1 and goes all the way to 9. The main idea of this game is we are defending our base on an alien planet from a non-stop torrential onslaught of crazy alien insects. And if we're able to survive 9 turns without the base getting destroyed, then we win. We'll be playing a 2-player game, which means the base starts with 30 hit points. The turns are also split up into waves. The first 3 turns involve Wave 1, in which we're only going to have access to Xenoxanthem 1, and we're only going to have access to this Ranger troop right here. We're not going to get the others until later in the game. We're always able to buy all these items, however. Going along with Wave 1, we will also see relatively weak enemies coming at us. Once we hit the 4th turn through the 6th turn, it goes to Wave 2, and now we have access to much more awesome troops. We get 3 Xenoxanthem instead of the 1s, and the enemies get much harder. And then the final phase of the game, the last 3 turns, involve us being able to get these very powerful troops, this 6 Xenoxanthem card, but the enemies get very tough. So it's the first turn, and the first thing we do is the draw phase. Each player draws until they have 6 cards in their hand off of their starting decks. The second phase of each turn is the acquire resources phase. The first thing that happens is each player takes 1 Xenoxanthem card from the applicable wave and they put it directly into their hands. Since this game is completely cooperative, I have both players' hands face up, and the purchasing of cards is simultaneous, and we can discuss what the best plan of attack is to balance our forces to defend ourselves against the aliens. As I said before, both players have a special ability. The left-hand player here is in charge of the weapons research, and this is interesting because each of these abilities has 3 different spots on it. We have a Wave 1, Wave 2, and Wave 3, and they are bonuses that we as players get, and they're cumulative. So in Wave 1, we only have access to the first one, but in Wave 2, we'll have access to both, and then by the time we get to Wave 3, we're going to need everything in order to survive. We see that for Wave 1, we get a discount of 1 on weapon items to a minimum of 1. So we're going to want to think about this discount when we're getting items to best use our resources. Likewise, the right player has a discount on medical items because they are in charge of the med bay. The first thing that we notice is each of us only drew 1 troop card, and it's these militias. Now, these are by far and away the weakest cards in the game, and we can see on the left-hand side they have an attack power of 2, so they'll do 2 damage, but they only have 1 life. The text down here really doesn't help them in combat. It just says you can discard these cards from the game or burn them in order to get discounts on future troops. So we are definitely going to need more troops in order to survive this first wave. The reason for this is because, as you can see, there are 4 slots for defensive units in each person's area, and then 4 slots for offensive aliens that are going to try and attack and destroy the base. Each player has one of these, so we both want to try and fill out our defensive side of the board as much as possible, and only 1 militia is just not going to do it. Each player has 4 buying power, and unfortunately, no matter how you shake it, you've got to have bodies in order to fill up that row. You're not actually allowed to acquire more militia. We see there's no cost in the top right corner. These Rangers are really the only option we have for filling bodies in. Now, the good thing is that our left-hand player was able to draw 2 of these shock rifles, which he can equip on the left-hand side or the right-hand side. We can kind of split these up as much as we want. In addition to that, our left-hand player was able to draw 2 of these med packs, which is going to allow our units to survive much better. So I think we both decide to buy 2 Rangers each because we both have 4 resources. So we take these 2 Rangers and they go directly into the hand of each player. This costs us all of our Xenoxanthem, so this goes into our respective discard piles. And now we're done with item acquisition. We'll move into deployment. Our left-hand player here is looking at this hand of cards. We have 3 troops to go off of. So as you can see, these Rangers are significantly better than the Militia because they have 2 more life, so they're going to be much more healthy. So let's go ahead and put our 2 Rangers at the front of the line, and then we're going to put our Militia at the back. Now the way this works is the enemies are going to come in this way, and the unit at the beginning of the line is going to be the one that's constantly in combat. Now the left player also has these 2 shock jumper rifles. These are pretty great. You put it on a troop and it adds 1 to its attack power, but more importantly we see you can have the equipped troop deal its damage before the enemy attacks. If you do this, you're going to discard the rifle. So usually attacks are simultaneous. The enemy attacks and the troop attacks, and then we resolve all of the damage at the same time. But this allows you once per combat round to damage it first before you take damage. We decide that it probably makes sense to go for a balanced approach. We're going to put one of these shock jumper rifles on this guy, and what is going to happen is the left player will give this rifle to a troop on the right-hand player's board because we can just swap these back and forth. The cool thing about that is you are effectively giving that player this rifle in totality. It's going to go into their discard pile and get drawn back into their hand. The left player is deployed, so now let's do the right. The right-hand player's hand is very similar. We've got the 2 Rangers and the Militia, so we'll go ahead and put the Rangers down at the front of the line and this Militia here. Now the thing about these med packs is we don't actually use them yet. We see that this card may be played in response to reveal effects, and you can prevent 2 damage that would be applied to a troop. Once again, this is the right-hand player. They could spend these cards on the left-hand player's zone to protect their troops, and that would give them this med pack into their deck. And finally, our left-hand player gives the right-hand player this shock rifle, as we talked about before. Now that everybody is deployed, we are going to get some enemies. We see that this says the Hive Wave 1, so we're accessing the weaker enemy deck in order to fill out these sections. We're going to put 4 cards down in each person's track, so this is for the left-hand player, and these are the bad guys for the right player. And it's important to note that in this big deck, there is 1 boss card. We might never see it, we might be about to see it in this first wave, and it is significantly harder to kill for sure. In the first turn, we decide which player is going to evaluate first. I'm going to just say that left-hand player gets to do that. This base hit point tracker right here will kind of be a first player marker. So now we're going to evaluate combat. The first thing that happens is we reveal the far right card and then read its text. We see that we've revealed a Charger. It has 3 attack and 1 defense, and if it deals any damage in excess of the hit points of whatever it's attacking, it's going to hit further enemies down the line. So that's really not good. And keep in mind, all damage is simultaneous. So this will be attacking over here while this is attacking over there. So this is doing 3 damage to here, and this is doing 3 damage over there, which will more than kill it. We could sacrifice our rifle to do damage before this guy attacks, but it probably makes more sense to have the right-hand player drop a med pack down. And this will absorb 2 damage that this troop would have taken. So he's still going to take 1 damage, but he'll be alive and he'll be powerful still. We don't want to lose this extra damage on the card. So this med pack goes into our discard pile, and now we deal the damage. The game comes with little red chits that mark damage on the characters, but I think it's much easier to just use dice to quickly evaluate. So this Ranger does 3 damage over here, and the Charger would do 3, but it got reduced by 2, so it only does 1 damage over here. We look at this and we see that the Charger is dead, and our Ranger is still alive and kicking. The only effect of killing this card is that it's not in our way anymore, and now we slide the next enemies over and we evaluate again. So this time we have a Worm Host. If this enemy kills a troop, discard any equipment on that troop, heal it to full, and place it at the end of the enemy line, and it becomes an enemy. So this could be really bad because it actually takes our troops and makes us fight them. It kind of infects them. It does 3 damage again and only has 1 hit point. So let's see what our options are like. Well, it's probably good to balance how much of these items we're using. We could use another med pack to let this guy survive again, but I think at this point he's going to discard his shock jumper rifle so that he can do his 3 damage to this guy before any damage comes back. So this rifle goes into our discard pile, and we do 3 damage to the Worm Host, which kills him. Alright, the next alien is a Corpse Eater. The first time this enemy would be killed, instead place it at the end of the enemy line and heal it back to 1 hit point. So that's pretty annoying, especially considering it has 3 hit points, and this guy only does 2 damage now that we got rid of the rifle. We really wanted that earlier. At this point, it doesn't do that much damage, so I think we're just going to evaluate it. So our Trooper is going to do 2 damage to the Corpse Eater, and the Corpse Eater is going to do a single damage over to the ranger, sorry. So now we have a situation where neither of these characters has been killed, so we just do their attacks again. That means that this guy is going to do 2 damage over here, which is going to put it up to 4, which would kill it. However, it's a corpse eater, so it's going to slide to the back of the line, and it already has 2 damage on it. We slide these down, and unfortunately our ranger took 1 damage in that attack, which brings him to 3 and kills him. But that's not the end of the world. He's going to go into our discard pile, and we still have 2 guys left over and a really weak creature at the very end. So let's reveal the next alien, and it is a swarmer. The first time this enemy attacks each round, it deals its damage before troops attack. Alright, so this is a bummer. It's essentially that version of the rifle that we just had. And unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot we can do about this. We do have that 1 med kit, which we could use, which would mean that the swarmer would do 3 damage to this guy. We could reduce it by 2, so it would only take 1. And then when these guys attack again, they'll both die, and this corpse eater will die to the militia, which would be good, but we have 0 medkits for the right-handed player's attacks. We've kind of used everything over here. The flip side is we could just let this happen, which means this ranger will die from the first 3 attack to the swarmer, and then the swarmer and the militia will kill each other. What that means is we don't have anything to kill this corpse eater, but it only does 1 damage. If you ever have a situation where you have no troops over here and you have aliens over here, they're each going to do 1 attack at the base and do damage equal to their attack to the base and then get discarded. So I guess 1 damage at the end of the day is probably better at the base than spending all of our resources. So the swarmer does 3 damage to our ranger, which kills him, unfortunately, and then our militia slides forward. Both these guys attack each other. We do 2 damage over here and 3 damage over here, which is going to kill both of these cards. These guys go back into our discard pile. And now the corpse eater slides up to the front, and it's going to do 1 damage to our beautiful, beautiful base, which is definitely a bummer. The corpse eater gets discarded, and we have evaluated 1/2 of the combat for the first turn. Okay, let's see the first enemy. We've got a corpse eater. Oh, we've seen those before. The first time it dies, it gets sent to the back of the line. Well, this is actually pretty good. Because this ranger is doing 3 damage, it's going to do 3 damage right away, and this corpse eater only does 1 damage at our ranger. Of course, this means the corpse eater goes to the back of the line and has to take 1 more damage to die, but at least we're not using any items. These all slide forward, and our corpse eater goes to the back. And let's reveal the next card. We've got a swarmer. Oh, we've seen this guy again as well. The first time it attacks each round, it's going to deal the damage before the other guy gets to go. This does seem like a reasonable spot, I think, to use the med kit to reduce that 3 damage by 2 down to 1, because our ranger will survive, and then we can actually ditch the rifle to kill this guy before it does an attack. So we will still have 3 people to go against the last 3 aliens. So we ditch the med kit, and the ranger only takes 1 damage. Now they're going to attack again, but we'll discard this rifle in order to do the damage first, which is going to kill the swarmer before it gets to do any damage to us. Then we slide these guys down and see what our next alien is. It's a shield swarm. Place this enemy at the end of the enemy line. While in the lane, reduce the damage all enemies suffer by 1. Oh, that's not great. So that's going to go all the way to the back here. And now let's see what we're fighting here. We've got a charger. Okay, this is the guy that deals damage over to subsequent people, and that's not good for this position. We're out of effects though, so this is just going to run its course. Our ranger is going to do 2 damage to the charger, but our charger does 3 damage to this ranger. Now this ranger already has 2 damage, so he's going to take 1 of that, and the 2 more damage from this charger is going to spill over to this guy, leaving him at 2 damage, and this ranger is gone. Unfortunately, this shield swarm is reducing the damage that these guys take by 1. Fortunately, our rangers do 2 damage, and that's enough to kill this guy. So this guy is going to get killed, but at the same time, he does 1 last damage, which is going to kill our ranger here. And lastly, this shield swarm is going to do 1 damage to our militia, and our militia would usually do 2 damage to the shield swarm, but because it has that reduced 1 damage, it's only going to do 1, and it's not quite going to kill him. This means our base is unfortunately going to take 1 more damage. This guy is discarded, and we've fully evaluated the first turn. Now we advance the turn track up by 1, and we start the second turn. Each player draws until they have 6 cards in their hand, and it looks like this time we have identical hands, 3 militia and 3 Xenoxanthem. At the start of our item acquisition, we each get 1 Xenoxanthem card, which gets added directly into our hands. And this turn, I think we really want to focus on trying to get items and use our little discounts appropriately because we have no special effects that we can use currently, and each of us has 3 troops which we can throw down into our lines already. So our left-hand player gets a discount of 1 on weapons, and we have 2 weapons out here. I think he's going to go ahead and grab another one of these spark jumpers because that was really useful being able to do damage first. That's going to cost 2 of our 4 Xenoxanthum for the turn. And I think for our final 2, we're going to go ahead and buy a med pack. Now, the reason I think I want to do this is because, as opposed to buying another ranger, is because a ranger is like a militia, but they have 2 more hit points, and this med pack is just 2 hit points, essentially. It saves 2 damage that come in. It also is able to be used on reveal effects, so when an enemy card is flipped over, sometimes they have that reveal effect where they do damage to something. This we could jump in and do something about, whereas a lot of other things can't. So we're going to throw this into the left-hand person's hand. The right-handed player gets a discount of 1 on medical items, so I think he's going to go ahead and grab this stim pack for only 2 Xenoxanthum. This is pretty nice because it can heal a troop by 1, and the next time they attack, they're going to do their damage before the enemy does, which is a lot like this shock rifle. So this will definitely come into handy, I believe. That costs 2 of our 4 resources here. And I think with our last 2 for the right-handed player, they're going to grab one of these rangers. Now, the reason for that is because this stim pack that we just got is going to heal damage from a troop. And all these militia only have 1 hit point, so they're going to die as soon as they take 1 damage. So I kind of want to have at least 1 person that I can heal damage off of in order to make use of this card. Alright, that's the end of buying items. Now let's go to deployment. We don't have a whole lot to think about here. We have 3 militia, so those are all going to go down into the front of the line. And then we have this spark rifle, which I figure we may as well put on the first guy in the line, and then who knows, maybe we can keep that guy alive for a little while with our med pack in hand. Our right-hand player has 4 different troops to play with, so let's go ahead and put the ranger at the front, and then toss our 3 militia to the back, and we'll obviously keep our stim pack in reserve to try and keep this ranger going. And now the aliens attack. The right player is going to start off the attack because the left-handed player did the first turn. We see that our base is at 28 hit points. Let's see what it's like after this turn. The first enemy we see is going to be a charger. Okay, so this is the one that deals damage going over. This is pretty good because our ranger has 3 hit points. Unfortunately, that would kill the ranger, so this probably, even though it's really early, is going to be a good time for our left-handed player to throw a med pack on here. This is going to absorb 2 of that damage, so our ranger is only going to take 1, and then this charger is going to die from the 2 damage that the ranger does. Next up, we slide the aliens down, and we reveal the next one, and that's going to be a smoker. Move this to the end of the line, and all enemies are going to do 1 extra damage, so that's not great at all. So that guy moves to the end, and then we reveal the next card, and we've got a worm host. If this enemy kills a troop, discard any equipment, and then put that troop to the back of the line. So that is also not great, and it's going to do 4 damage. Well, we definitely don't want the worm host to kill anybody because we want less people in this line doing damage. I think this probably is a good time to use our stim pack. Now, the stim pack does not say that it can be used on reveal for reveal effects, but this creature does not have a reveal action, so I can spend this in order to heal 1 damage from my ranger, and now he's going to do damage first for only the next attack that he does. The stim pack goes into our discard pile, and the ranger is going to do 2 damage to this worm host, which is going to kill him. We slide these down, and we see what we have next. It is a corpse eater. Okay, so this guy gets to regenerate, so he's going to go back here, and unfortunately, he is doing 2 damage. Fortunately, our ranger is all the way healed, so he's going to take 2 damage from that attack, and he's going to do 2 damage to our corpse eater. That doesn't quite kill him, so they go again. The ranger is going to die from the second 2 damage that the corpse eater does, but this is going to send the corpse eater to the back of the line with only 1 HP remaining. We slide these forward, and now the militia have a chance. The smoker is doing 2 damage because it buffs everybody. Fortunately, the militia also does 2 damage, which kills him, and the damage doesn't spill over, so these 2 guys are going to kill each other. And then we slide these guys in, and once again, we're going to have 2 damage, which will kill the militia, but he's doing 2 damage back to the corpse eater, which is going to kill it. This is really nice because we had a card win the battle, and it's actually going to hang out here and be ready to attack on the next battle, and we can change his position in the line. Alright, let's do the left-hand player. Well, what we see is what we get. We have no cards in hand at all, so let's see how our fortunes go. We've got, that's really unfortunate. a smoker, so right off the bat, all these guys are going to do extra damage. Next up, we have a worm host. So this is the one that's going to infect and put the enemy into the line if it's able to kill anybody. So I think right from the get-go, let's go ahead and ditch this rifle in order to do damage first, which is going to go ahead and kill this worm host, but it's not actually going to kill anything. We slide these guys down, and now let's see, we've got a leech. Each time this enemy kills a troop, it gains 2 power this round. Oh gosh, so it's just going to get bigger and bigger. This is not looking too great for us because, well, let's see, let's just go ahead and do it. The leech does 2 damage to our militia, and the militia does 2 damage back. This is going to go ahead and kill our militia and bring the next guy up, and the leech is going to get 2 more power. Not that it really matters, it's kind of overkilling everything as it goes, but it's now doing 4 damage, but this militia is going to do 2, which will kill this leech, but that 4 damage is definitely going to kill our militia here. We slide this down, and it is really not looking good for us this turn. We flip it over, and we've got a charger. Oh, this is really not good for us, because the charger is doing 4 damage, so it's going to do 4 damage to this militia. It only takes 1 to kill him, and then there's 3 extra damage, which is all going to go to our base. So from 28, we are now down to 25. This charger gets discarded, and now the smoker is going to do 2 damage to our base, which puts us to 23. Definitely not a good turn for us. All right, now it's turn 3, and both players draw 6 cards. Both of us don't have any deck left. This is our discard pile, so since this is a deck building game, we're going to shuffle these up and then deal out hands. Now each player gets 1 Xenoxanthem card from the top of the stack, and our hands are significantly different this time. Our left-hand player has 4 different buying power, and they have a ranger and militia, as well as a med pack. And over here, we only have 3 buying power, but we have 2 militia and 2 med packs. Oof, definitely not a great hand over here. Since our left player only has 3 buying power, it probably makes sense to use his discount to grab another med pack, even though he already has 2. And he's able to grab this for 1 Xenoxanthem, and then spend the last 2 grabbing a ranger. And over here where we have 4, I think we're going to spend 2 of these on yet another Spark Jumper Assault Rifle. I'm going to throw that into our hand and then spend these last 2 grabbing 1 more ranger so that both of these characters are going to have 3 troops to play with. And we have, fortunately, 4 med packs between us, so much better survivability. All right, now let's deploy. Left-hand player has 2 rangers and a militia, so I think we'll just open up by dropping both rangers, militia, and then, yeah, let's throw this Spark Rifle on the first ranger just to have a little bit of bang there. And the left-hand player has 1 card left in hand. It's a med pack. Over here, we have these 2 militia and a ranger, but we also have this militia hanging out from the first round. So we'll go ahead and put him over there, drop our ranger to the front, throw 2 militia to the very back, and we've got 3 med packs in hand, so that's also quite important. And here are the final Wave 1 aliens. With all these med packs, I feel like we have a reasonably good shot at a good turn. I just really hope we didn't draw a boss. And let's go ahead and see what our first monster is. It's a Corpse Eater. All right. This is pretty great, actually, because our ranger does 3 damage, which is enough to kill him for the first time, and the Corpse Eater is only going to do 1 damage back. So our Corpse Eater is going to slide to the very back with 2 damage on him, and hopefully not be much of a threat at the end. The next alien is a Swarmer, so this is the one that does its attack first. So the Swarmer is going to do 3 damage to our ranger before they can attack back. I imagine if I discard this rifle, they would just attack simultaneously, but let's go ahead and have the Swarmer attack, and we'll drop a med pack here so that our ranger can survive a little bit longer, so he's only going to take 1 damage from this attack. And if they both attack now, the ranger would die, so I figure we'll use our rifle to attack the Swarmer first before it can get damage in, which will allow our ranger to survive a little bit longer, and the Swarmer is dead. Next up, we have a Gatherer. Each time this enemy kills a troop, deal the base 1 damage. That's really not great. We definitely don't want him killing anybody. The right-hand player has 3 med packs still, so I think we'll probably use 1. So that'll go into the discard pile over here, and it'll absorb both damage that our ranger would have taken, and that ranger is going to do 2 damage, which kills the Gatherer, and our base does not take any further damage. We slide these down and hope for a weak enemy. It is, oh, another Gatherer. Crap. At this point, I think we need to save the med packs over there, so they're both going to attack each other. This will kill the Gatherer, but it does 2 damage over here, killing our ranger, and unfortunately, doing 1 damage to our base. We're now at 22. These guys all slide forward, and the ranger's going to do 2 damage over here, and only take 1 damage from the Corpse Eater, So ultimately that round was really not bad. We did take 1 damage to the base, but we've got a pretty strong setup for the next turn. Let's see how the right player fares. Our first enemy is a drone. If this enemy kills a troop or deals the base damage, the next time you would draw 1 less. So that's really not great. Fortunately, that won't be a problem for us. He's going to do 2 damage to our ranger, which won't kill him, and our ranger will do 2 damage back, which does kill him. So our ranger takes 2 damage, and then he's going to fight the next alien, which is going to be a worm host. This is the one where if it kills a troop, then it's going to come over here. Unfortunately, there's almost nothing we could do about it because it's going to do 3 damage over here. I could spend a med pack to reduce it to 1, which is still going to kill this ranger. That doesn't sound like a very good use of a med pack, so I think it's going to happen. Our worm host is going to kill the ranger. The ranger still does its 2 damage back and kills the worm host, but he kind of infects the ranger, and now the ranger is fighting for the swarm, at least for now. He's going to end up back in my discard pile after I take care of him. We slide all these militia forward, and let's see what we get now. It is a smoker. Dang it. So this goes to the back, and it's going to buff everybody, make them all do 1 more damage. And now we've got a swarmer, which is going to do its damage first. Oh, this is really not great. Again, it makes no sense to spend a med pack over here because it's doing 4 damage. Our militia will still die. So the swarmer does 4 damage to our militia. He is gone. These guys slide forward, and it's going to happen again. Fortunately, the militia gets to damage back on the swarmer. They're both going to take each other out. But things are not looking great for old militia man over here. Fortunately, we have 2 med packs. Our ranger here does 3 damage because it's buffed by the smoker. And so we're going to spend both of these med packs to absorb all 4 of that damage. And our militia is going to do 2 damage back, which unfortunately is not going to quite kill the ranger, but it allows the militia on the next round to kill the ranger, unfortunately dying at the same time, which unfortunately leaves the smoker alive. There's just really nothing we can do about that. And the smoker is going to do 2 damage to our base once again. After 3 rounds, we have now lost 10 life. We're at 20. That's not really looking very good. I'm sure it'd be way worse if we'd hit a boss. Fortunately, we didn't. Alright, it's turn 4, and we've now hit wave 2. Unfortunately, that means that the enemies are going to get much harder. Fortunately, we now get access to these 3 great troops, and we're going to get 3 Xenoxanthem a turn instead of 1. Both players draw up to 6 cards, and now we start buying stuff. The 3 new units we have access to are actually pretty great. So they're all worth 3 Xenoxanthem each as opposed to the 2 from before. But we got this paratrooper who does 5 damage and can take 3, and the really great thing about him is he can zoom in even in the middle of battle. So if you have more than 4 troops, you can put them out. Once one dies, you can zoom a paratrooper in to do extra damage. Next up, we've got the field medic. They can take 4 damage and do 3. And a really great thing is once per round, they can prevent up to 2 damage that a troop would suffer. So it's kind of like a med pack all rolled up into 1. Finally, we have the stormtrooper. And as you can see, it does 3 damage and has 4 health. And once per turn, it can just do 2 damage to 1 revealed enemy. Another thing to note is that both the militia and the trooper have this bonus down here where it says burn the card from your hand to reduce the cost of the next troop by 1. So we're definitely going to want to think about getting these out of our deck and getting discounts on way better troops. Both players are going to get a 3 Xenoxanthem crystal card, which is really great. And now they get to shopping. Our left-hand player has 6 resources to play with, and our right-hand player has 7. The last effect of Wave 2 is that we both have access to better stuff now. We have that discount just like before, but now that we're in Wave 2, our weapons research is going to let us once per round pull an item from our discard pile back into our hand. So that's very useful. And over here, our med bay is going to allow us to heal 1 troop for 2 health every time we play a medical card. And we have got a lot of medical cards, so hopefully this synergy will allow us to stem the amount of damage that our base has been taking. Alright, so our left-hand player has 6 stuff to use. And I think he's going to definitely burn this militia in order to get a discount on grabbing new troops. So we will grab a paratrooper, and I think we have a pretty cool reason for this. The first thing is he does 5 damage. So we could do that for only 2 resources because we burned a militia. We have 4 resources left, and we know that we have a discount of 1 when we're grabbing weapons because of our weapons research. So let's go ahead and grab a chainsaw for only 2 Xenoxanthem, which is going to leave us with 2 remaining, to grab 1 more ranger. Over on the right-hand side, we have 7 resources to play with, only 1 militia, and the right-hand player has nobody in its lane, whereas the left-hand player has a ranger and a militia already. So over here, we definitely got to get some people. I think we're going to get rid of this militia to give us a discount of 1. We're going to grab a stormtrooper. This is the one that does damage once per round. We're going to grab that for 2. Next, let's grab a field medic. We're going to get that for 3. So we still have 2 resources remaining. And we'll use our once per round to get a 1 discount on something medical and grab a stim pack for 2 instead of 3, which will let us do, that once attack before the enemies can get to us. This spends all of the Xenoxanthem that both players played, but one last cool thing happens with Wave 2. We see on these level 1 Xenoxanthams it says, Wave 2, burn 3 Xenoxanthem cards from your discard pile and place 1 3 value into your deck. So this lets you consolidate down the Xenoxanthem in your discard pile, and fortunately, I've got quite a bit. I had 4 in my discard pile already, and I'm about to put 3 in. So this first one lets me consolidate these down into 3, and this next one lets me consolidate these 3 down into a 3 value card. I put all these back on the pack, and I get these 2 triple Xenoxanthem cards to go into my discard pile. I still have 1 of these left over, but what you gonna do? These are the single values from the right-hand player's discard, so we bring this in to consolidate these, and we bring in these 2 to consolidate these, and it's gonna be the same situation for that player. All right, now let's go to deployment. So the right-hand player only has these 2 characters right here, the Stormtrooper and the Field Medic. Fortunately, much like sending equipment back and forth, you can also deploy troops into other people's zones. This means that our left-handed player is going to give us a ranger from their hand, put it into our track in order to balance our forces. I also only have this 1 rifle, which I think I'll put down on this character, and once again, our left-handed player is going to donate a rifle to try and make me a little bit stronger. I've got 1 stim pack in my hand, and now let's go see what the left-hand player does. So the left player had 2 people survive the last attack. We only have the 1 new person, so we're both going to have 3 going on. I think we're going to slide these guys over and put our paratrooper right at the beginning. And now let's throw the chainsaw down onto this paratrooper. The chainsaw is going to add 2 damage. Also, once per round, we can have any excess damage from this spill over onto the following enemy. So that's going to actually put our paratrooper at 7 damage, which is really big. And then let's give our damaged ranger a shock rifle. Now it's time for aliens, and now they come from Wave 2. Once again, there's a single boss in this whole deck. Really hoping we don't see it. And the first enemy in the line is going to be a Flayer Centipede. The first time this enemy would be killed, it's healed back up to 2 life. It only has 2 life, so it essentially has 2 lives, and it does 4 damage each time, which is definitely a bummer. This seems like a pretty realistic time to use our Stormtrooper. The text on the Stormtrooper says once per round we can put a little ability symbol on it to do 2 damage to a revealed enemy. So we'll do 2 damage to this Flayer Centipede, which is going to kill it, sort of. It'll immediately heal back to 2, and we've got to hit it again. Now when they attack again, I could discard this rifle in order to kill it before it does damage, but I think instead I will activate this Field Medic to absorb 2 of the damage that this Flayer Centipede would do to our Stormtrooper. So he's only going to take 2 damage, but he does 4 over to the Flayer Centipede, which is more than enough to kill it. Next up, we've got a Plague Fly. Each time this enemy kills a troop, deal 1 base damage plus 1 additional damage to each troop in line. Wow, that is really not good. Fortunately, our Stormtrooper can do 4 damage, and this Plague Fly takes 4 damage. This seems like a great time to pop our Stim Pack. This is going to heal 1 damage on our Stormtrooper and allow him to attack before the Plague Fly hits back. So we won't take any of this crazy damage. It's going to do 4 to the Plague Fly, which will kill it. Next up, we've got a Butcher. This enemy deals its damage to the first 2 troops in lane when it attacks. Damage from this enemy cannot be prevented. Wow, and he's going to take 5 damage to kill. Well, this definitely seems like an okay time to use our shock rifle. It's going to discard to do our damage first before the Butcher hits back. Unfortunately, this only does 4 damage to the Butcher, not quite enough to kill him, so he is going to be attacking once. So in this next round, the Butcher does 2 damage to both of these people. Our Field Medic is up to 2, and our Stormtrooper is still just barely alive with 3 hit points. Our Stormtrooper does 3 damage back to the Butcher, which is more than enough to kill him. And the final enemy in this line is going to be a Brain Mantis. If there's a troop in your discard pile, place the top troop in your discard pile to the front of the enemy lane, and then discard this enemy. That troop gets +2 power and +2 health, and becomes an enemy. Well, that's really not great. So we need to look at our discard pile and see if there are any troops. I'm pretty sure there is. And yep, look, there's the militia. Fortunately, it's a militia. It's the top one in our discard pile. And the Brain Mantis goes away, or I guess more importantly, it infects the mind of this militia. And this militia is now +2/+2, so he is a 4/3. Things aren't looking great for our Stormtrooper, but things are looking really good for us in general because our Stormtrooper is going to do 3 damage to the militia, which is enough to kill him, and our militia does 4 back, which way overkills our Stormtrooper. Both these guys are going to go right into the discard pile, and I think we did a pretty good job of defending the base over here. Now it's the left player's turn. Let's see what the first thing our awesome paratrooper fights is. It's Havoc. If this enemy kills a troop, all enemies in the lane receive +1 power for the round. That's really not great. Because even though our paratrooper does 7 damage and it's going to overkill Havoc, the Havoc does 5 damage back and I am out of things that can prevent damage. In retrospect, it would have been better if he had a shock rifle so he could do his damage first, but that's not how it went. So let's discard our chainsaw, which lets us spill our damage over to one more creature, so we're doing 7 total. 3 of it is going to go to Havoc. And then we reveal the next creature, and if it has a reveal effect, it happens. Let's see, this enemy fights the last troop in the lane instead of the first. Okay, well, there's no reveal effect there. And fortunately, it's got 4 hit points, and the remainder of our 7 does 4, which is going to kill both of these guys. Unfortunately, this 5 damage is going to kill our paratrooper, which will increase the attack power of our last 2 enemies by 1. Both of these guys are dead though, so I think our paratrooper did a pretty good job. These guys slide up, and now we've got to face Havoc again. Oh, crud. So now it's a 6-3. This time, however, we've got a Spark Jumper rifle, so let's definitely discard this rifle to let us attack first. The Ranger is going to do 3 damage, which is the exact amount to kill Havoc before it does any damage back, and there's no further buffs. Finally, we're going to go against this Plague Fly. This is the one where it is going to do damage to the base and other people if it kills anybody. And that's going to happen because we are out of cards, there's nothing left in any of our hands, so this is just going to evaluate as it does. This Ranger is going to do 2 damage to the Plague Fly, and the Plague Fly is going to do 3 back, which is going to kill the Ranger. And the worst part is that this Plague Fly does 1 damage to the base for that troop it killed and every further troop down. We have 1 more, so that's going to be 2 damage to our base. We are now at 18. Man, we were looking so good after that first half of the turn. Lastly, this guy shifts up, and they do 2 damage over here, which kills the Plague Fly, and the Plague Fly's 3 damage is going to kill this Militia. And that means we take 1 more damage. Yikes. Just before the end of the turn, I'm going to use my once per round weapons lab to go through a discard pile and find a weapon and put it in hand. We are now in turn 5, and we both draw up to 6 cards. And both players are going to get a triple Xenoxanthem card, which will put both of their buying power at 5. So in the current position, the right-hand player has a Field Medic and a Ranger over here, and the left-hand player has nothing. So we definitely want to try and balance these lanes out. Our right-hand player has 3 Rangers, our left-hand player has 2 Militia, so I think we're going to do some interesting swapping back and forth. The right-handed player is going to discard a Ranger to get a discount of 1 when grabbing a new troop, and then they're going to grab a Paratrooper for only 2. This leaves him with 3 resources left. I think he's going to grab a Vindicator Armor. This is going to give 2 extra hit points to the troop. Also, when that troop dies, it'll do damage equal to half of the troop's health rounded up to an enemy, so that's pretty great. And over here, the left player is actually going to discard 2 Militia and a Ranger, getting all of them out of their deck and getting a -3 to grabbing the first character in line. And considering no one has any med packs on them, I think I'm going to grab a Field Medic with this to have a little bit of extra damage grabbing. And with our 5 extra resources, we're going to grab a Stormtrooper, and then we're going to get 1 more Spark Jumper rifle. And this actually exhausts the pile for the item. On the next turn, we'll get a whole new random item to play with. Both of the players have used all of their resources, and both players are now able to trade in 3 of their last 1-value Xenoxanthems for 1 of the triple card into their discard piles. Now let's go to deployment. So our left player has 2 troops and 2 weapons. That's really not going to be good enough. So fortunately, our right-hand player has decided to give us 1 Ranger as well as that piece of armor they just picked up. So now we can go ahead and put a Stormtrooper here. We'll give him a shock rifle, and we'll also give him this piece of armor. Now, each character, each troop is only allowed to have 1 piece of armor and 1 weapon. Next up, let's put a Field Medic at the back, because I know that there are some aliens that only fight the last person in line, not the first. And they'll throw this Ranger into the middle, and then why don't we give the Field Medic this shock rifle in case they do end up fighting that guy that goes to the back. Now let's deploy right. Over here, we only have these 3 cards in hand. The Stim Pack is obviously for later in the turn, and I think what we'll do is throw our Paratrooper at the front of the line, and we're allowed to swap around weapons and armor, but we aren't taking damage off of anybody, and we can't bring anybody back in. And let's put him in the middle and actually slide our Field Medic to the very back of the line. Once again, in case we fight that monster that only attacks the very back one, we've got a Stim Pack. We can heal up the Field Medic, and they can attack that monster before they can attack it. And here come the aliens. So we've got a pretty awesome Stormtrooper here. Let's see what he's going to face first. We've got a Havoc. So this is the one that buffs the rest of the line if it kills anybody. Fortunately, the Stormtrooper has 6 life and the Havoc only does 5 damage, so he's going to survive. I don't see any specific reason to use any abilities, so the Stormtrooper is going to take 5 damage, and he's going to deal 4 to Havoc, which kills it. Next up, we are going to fight a Shifter. This enemy fights the last troop instead of the first. It continues from the back, so now we're really happy we put this Field Medic in the back instead of that Ranger. So our Field Medic is going to do 4 damage to the Shifter, and it'll do 4 damage back. I think we'll go ahead and use the Field Medic's ability to absorb 2 of that damage, so they only take 2 damage, but the Shifter is dead, and we're able to keep the rifle on the Medic. Alright, next we have got to fight a Flare Centipede, so this is the one that we unfortunately have to kill 2 times. Just like last time, I think we'll use this ability chit to do 2 damage to the Flare Centipede, effectively killing it once, and now we've got to do it again. I think it's probably worth it to ditch this Assault Rifle to do the damage before it does damage back, and I figure the Stormtrooper is probably going to die to the last character, but maybe we'll be able to keep these guys alive for the next round. So the Flare Centipede is dead, and finally we get to see a Brain Mantis. Ah, crud. So this is the one that goes through our discard pile and infects the first troop that it sees. Oh, well, good for us, it's a Militia again. So the Militia comes down, and remember they get +2/+2, so it's a 4/3 enemy with a little mantis inside its brain. We could probably use a stim pack in order to let this Stormtrooper survive, but he's so damaged already, I think it's probably best to just have him die. He's going to do 3 damage to the Militia, which is just enough to kill it, and the Militia is going to do 4 back, which kills him, exploding the Vindicator armor, doing damage to, unfortunately, nothing in the line. The Stormtrooper is gone, but I'd say that was a pretty great defense. Alright, let's see what our Shock Rifle Paratrooper has to go against. We've got a Plague Fly. Each time this enemy kills a troop, it's going to do damage to the base, and it would do a lot of damage to the base right now. And our Paratrooper actually does 6 damage. We could discard this rifle, but I think it might be better first to use our Field Medic to absorb 2 of the damage from this Plague Fly. So our Paratrooper is only going to take the 1 damage, and he's going to kill the crud out of this Plague Fly. Next up, we are going to see a Flare Centipede. Okay, so this is the one that needs to get killed twice. We don't have any Stormtroopers who are able to do that 2 damage, unfortunately. So I think we'll use the Stim Pack to heal us 1 damage and allow the Paratrooper to do damage first, which is going to be enough to kill the Flare Centipede the first time, and then we'll go ahead and discard the rifle for the second time we attack the Flare Centipede, which is going to kill it. Alright, now we have a Butcher. Oh yeah, this is the one that's going to do damage to the first 2 people in line, and you're not actually able to absorb any of it. Really would have wished to have the Shock Rifle here, but we don't. So the Butcher is going to do 2 damage to both of these guys. Fortunately, the Paratrooper is going to do 5 damage, which is exactly enough to kill the Butcher. The last alien in line is going to be a Brain Mantis. Okay, so once again, let's dig through our discard pile. The first person we hit, oh man, that's unfortunate. It's a Stormtrooper. And the Mantis inside its brain has buffed it to a 5/6. That is 1 more than our poor Paratrooper can do, so our Paratrooper is going to do 5 damage over to the Stormtrooper and then get obliterated by taking 5 damage. And then our damaged Ranger here, he is going to do the last 2 damage, which is going to kill the Stormtrooper, but the Stormtrooper is going to kill him as well. That's probably okay. Having a super damaged Ranger in the line is not going to be that great of a thing. Fortunately, that was a whole wave where we took no damage. Awesome. Before the end of the turn, our left-handed player can look through their discard pile to find a weapon of their choice and put it into their hand. So let's go ahead and throw one of these Spark Jumper Assault Rifles into our hand. Okay, it's turn 6 and the last turn for Wave 2. Both of our players have drawn 6 cards, and now they both get a triple Xenoxanthem card, which puts our left-handed player at 9 and our right-handed player at 12 resources. But before we start buying anything, we need to swap out this Spark Jumper Rifle for a new item. We will choose randomly from this deck here, and our new item will be a Pulsar Shield. So we'll go ahead and put that down here. And this is a card we can play in combat to reduce the damage to a troop by 4. That could be quite nice. Unfortunately, it's not medical or a weapon, so we don't get any bonuses for it. Let's start with the right-hand player who has 12 resources to play with. The first thing that they're going to do is get rid of these 2 Militia cards for a discount of 2. They just don't want these in their deck anymore. They're going to grab a Paratrooper for only 1. Next up, they're going to grab a Stim Pack for 2 because they use their once per round discount. We now have 9 left over. We're going to spend 3 of that on some Templar armor. This one's great. It adds 1 damage and then another 2 hit points, and if you have a weapon, it does another damage, so it can add quite a bit of damage there. And with our 6 left, I think we're going to get 1 more Field Medic, and let's go ahead and grab this Med Pack, which is going to be the last from the line. That leaves us with one extra resource, but I don't know if grabbing these scout drones is worth it, because even though they only cost one, they are going to be in my deck and kind of get in the way. It lets you switch two people in the lane in the middle of combat. I think that might be a little too situational. I might end up eating my words on that. And then our left-hand player has 9 resources to play with, so he's going to go ahead and grab a paratrooper for 3, and then a chainsaw for 2 with the discount, so we have 4 left over. And with that, he'll grab a stormtrooper, and unfortunately, I think he's going to waste one more unused resource as well. With that, we have bought all of our resources. We throw all this Xenoxanthem into our discard piles. All right, now let's start deploying. All right, we've got a whole bunch of fun stuff now. I think we're going to put this Ranger to the back of the line. I'm kind of hoping that it gets targeted by that alien that only jumps to the back, so we can get it into our discard pile and we can burn it to get that discount. Next up, let's throw a field medic in the middle, and then I think a stormtrooper at the front. We can keep this paratrooper in our hand because, as you can see, it says you may deploy this troop anytime you can play an instant. When this troop is deployed, you can immediately equip it with a weapon card and an armor card from your hand. Well, I don't think I'm going to do that. I will be playing this armor down, but we have this guy in our back pocket in case we get cleaned out. So let's go ahead and put this Templar armor on our stormtrooper, and we will ask kindly to our left-handed player if we can get a weapon to really buff this up. The left-handed player agrees and gives us a spark jumper rifle. Now let's do the left player. You know, after rethinking it, we've got a paratrooper in our hand, and we kind of want to do that chainsaw gag like we did in that previous turn. I think that would be a lot better with that Templar armor that we'd put on that stormtrooper over here. So let's go ahead and actually swap that over. We'll bring this Templar armor, put it on the paratrooper, and we'll give this Vindicator armor, which does damage equal to half of the total life when that trooper dies. And we'll go ahead and put that on the stormtrooper on the right-hand side. Let's go ahead and throw this Ranger to the back, kind of hoping that he gets eaten as well, and then we'll drop this Stormtrooper right in the middle. Lastly, we have 2 weapons over here and only 1 to the other side, so I think I'm going to go ahead and take this Spark Jumper rifle, and let's equip it to this Field Medic. In case this guy gets eaten, we have a little bit of defense there. Alright, the only thing left in hand is a med pack. We're done deploying. Bring on the aliens. This will be the last time we see Wave 2. Let's see if we get unlucky and hit that boss. The first alien we encounter is a Prowler. On reveal, deal the first troop in the lane 3 damage. Oh, yikes. This seems like a reasonable time to use our med pack. It will eat 2 of the 3 damage that this Prowler immediately does to us, so our Stormtrooper only takes 1. But if you look at the Wave 2 bonus here, we see that whenever I play a healing card, I get to heal 1 other troop up to 2. It just so happens my Field Medic has 2 damage, so let's go ahead and remove that, and that worked out pretty well for us. Now the Prowler is going to do 4 damage to my Stormtrooper. Fortunately, he has 6 life, so he is going to take that 4 damage, bring him up to 5, and then he's going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 damage to that Prowler, totally obliterating it. We bring the next aliens down, and we get to see a Panic Spider. Oh geez. Deal the first troop in the lane 2 damage and place that troop in the back of the lane. Now I kind of want him to explode. He's got this awesome armor that'll do damage to other things, but he also has this ability to do 2 damage once per round, and I cannot do that after a reveal effect. So I think I'm going to use my ability token on this Field Medic, and it will stop the 2 damage that this Panic Spider would do to my Stormtrooper. Unfortunately, it does not stop the reveal effect, which causes the Stormtrooper to run to the back. Now the Field Medic will do 3 damage to our Panic Spider, and then the Panic Spider will do 3 damage back. This puts the Panic Spider 2 away from death. I think we'll go ahead and use the Stormtrooper's ability to do 2 damage to any 1 revealed alien and kill this Panic Spider. We bring on the next cards, and we've got a Butcher. And one cool option is that the left-handed player can now use their Stormtrooper to do 2 damage to the Butcher over there. So we've got 2 damage on the Butcher, and then we'll go ahead and use this Stim Pack to heal 1 damage from our Field Medic, and since this is a healing card, we also get to heal 2 damage from somebody else. The Stormtrooper's pretty hurt. Let's go ahead and heal him up to only 3 damage. And now the Field Medic gets to do damage before the Butcher does, so the Field Medic will do 3 damage, which is just enough to kill the Butcher without it doing damage to the first 2 people in the row. The last enemy in the line is going to be a Prowler, so this is the one that's going to deal 3 damage to the first troop in the lane. There's not a whole lot we can do about that. There is a med pack over there, but I think at this point we need to save some of those resources. The Prowler is going to do 3 damage to our Field Medic, which kills it. These guys all slide down. And now I'm going to go ahead and discard this Spark Jumper rifle to attack first, doing 4 damage to this Prowler, which is enough to kill it, and he's not going to do any extra damage. Let's see how the left player fares. Alright, over here we have this awesome Paratrooper who does 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage that has the potential to roll over. And let's see what kind of stuff he is going to fight against. The first thing we have is a Quill Beast. This enemy deals 1 additional damage to the first 3 troops in a lane when it attacks. Well, that's not too great. He does 2 damage to the paratrooper and then throws quills at the first 3 in line. But we can survive this. So our paratrooper is going to take 2 damage plus 1 for the quill. Our stormtrooper is going to take 1 damage, and our field medic over here is going to take another damage. At the same time, we hit this Quill Beast for 9 damage, so that definitely kills him. We have the option of getting rid of the chainsaw to do 3 damage to the next thing in line, but I think let's see how this plays out. Alright, the next card is going to be another Butcher. So this is the one that attacks the first 2 people in line. Unfortunately, this damage is not preventable, and that's going to push our paratrooper over the line. So I think now is the time for us to sack the chainsaw to at least do damage to the next thing. So that's 9 damage. Minus 5 is 4, so this is going to kill the Butcher. The paratrooper is going to die, unfortunately, and that's 2 damage over to our stormtrooper here, but he's just barely alive still. And then we reveal this card here, and we're going to do 4 damage to it. It's another Quill Beast. That's not enough to kill it, but it's a pretty good start. So this Butcher is now dead, and unfortunately, so is this paratrooper. So we slide all these guys down, and now we have to fight this Quill Beast. And this is a real bummer, because the Quill Beast is going to do enough damage to kill our field medic before they even get a chance to fire. And we do have this med pack we can play with. But if we don't use the med pack on the stormtrooper, then the stormtrooper is definitely going to die. Well, I guess the stormtrooper is going to die no matter what. So let's go ahead and do this attack. We'll use this med pack to mitigate the 1 damage from the Quill Beast coming onto our field medic. Our stormtrooper is going to take 1, 2, 3 damage, which is definitely going to kill him, but he's going to do 3 damage back, which is going to kill the Quill Beast. And this ranger holding up the rear is going to take 1 damage. Alright, let's see what the final alien of Wave 2 is. It is, crap. It is a boss. It is the one boss in the deck, the Flesh Ripper Hornet. The first time this enemy attacks each round, it deals its damage before the troops attack, and if the enemy is killed by the troop, you burn the troop. You discard it from your deck. You don't get to keep it. Wow, that's really bad. Well, we have this Spark Jumper Assault Rifle, so I figure now is probably the time to use it. So we're going to discard this, and I think what this lets me do is attack the Hornet at the same time. He was going to attack first, but now we get to kind of meet in the middle and do damage to both ways. So we're going to get 4 damage onto the Flesh Ripper Hornet, but our field medic is definitely going to die, and it does not come into my deck. It gets taken back to the item area. That is a big bummer. Now we have one thing up our sleeve still, this paratrooper in the right-hand player's hand. It says you can deploy this troop anytime you can play an instant, and I feel like now is probably a time for that. Now I actually want this ranger to die, and it's going to do the 2 damage needed to kill the Flesh Ripper. So I think I'm going to drop the paratrooper in here so that he's in play and not clogging up the hand of the right-hand player so they can draw more cards next turn. The ranger is going to do 2 damage to the Flesh Ripper Hornet, which kills it, and then the ranger gets obliterated by the Flesh Ripper Hornet. So we've once again defended the base. We took no damage that round, but we did unfortunately lose a card. Before the end of the turn, our left-hand player is going to look through the deck and pull out a weapon. Let's keep on hitting this Spark Jumper. It seems really useful. First things first, let's get rid of this med pack item and draw a new random item. And it is going to be, a Hellblaster rocket launcher. That sounds awesome. This one is pretty simple. It just adds 4 damage, so that could be fun to play around with, especially because we get a discount to buy it. We are now in the 7th turn, which means we are at Wave 3. The enemies are going to get a lot more difficult, but we have access to these 3 really great troops. The first one is the Hyperion. It does 7 damage, has 5 health, and once per round when an enemy takes damage from a troop, this guy can add 4 to it, kind of like long-range artillery. We've got this Defender suit. It only does 3 damage, but has 10 life. And once per round when a troop is dealt damage, they can just take 3 damage instead of whatever it was. The best part is it can be used as a reveal effect. And finally, the Ajax Battle Suit. It's a 6/6, and once per round if this troop kills anything, everything else, although the troops in the lane get +2 power. That's really great. Both players draw 6 cards, and then they both now get a 6 Xenoxanthem card, which is good because our left-handed player drew none of the resource. We now have access to our final round bonuses. Our weapons research station now makes all weapons +1 power. That's really awesome. And down here, whenever you would heal or prevent damage, you increase the healing by 1 or prevention by 1. So that's really great too. Well, first things first, our left-handed player is definitely going to get rid of both of these rangers and this militia. They're going to burn all of them to get a 3 discount when buying a new unit. And it's really hard not to get this battle suit, because as soon as he kills anybody, he adds extra power to everybody else in the line. I think I really got to grab that. That only cost 3 of our 6 resource because we burned those 3 guys. So the last thing is, I think we'll take another one of these Templar armors. We've got lots of weapons going on, so this adding 2 I think is definitely going to be worth it. Our right-handed player has 9 resources and 1 militia and 1 ranger, so I think they are also going to get rid of both of those cards to get a 2 discount. They're going to grab a battlesuit Ajax as well. That only cost them 4. They've got 5 left to play with, and they have a couple of weapons too, so they're also going to take a Templar armor, and with that last 2 and the discount, they are going to grab a stim pack. We're going to take this Xenoxanthem and throw it in our discard piles. However, now that we're in wave 3, we can look through our discard pile, find one other of these triple Xenoxanthems, and discard it and take a 6. So we get to consolidate more. Alright, let's deploy. Alright, first things first, let's put this battlesuit into the front of the line because we want it to kill something soon so we can get the buffs going on everything else. We'll go ahead and throw a paratrooper to the back. Let's see, we got this Templar armor. Let's go ahead and buff up this Ajax battlesuit so they can do even more damage. And then let's go ahead and really make sure that's going to kill something. And we'll put this Spark Jumper assault rifle on this guy so that he has the chance to do damage before it can get fought back and they all get buffs. And let's go ahead and throw a chainsaw on this paratrooper. Alright, right's turn. We're going to want to put the Ajax at the front of the line just for the same reason the other side. Let's go ahead and give him a weapon and a Templar armor for the same reasons as the other side. And I think let's rearrange this so that we can get this awesome Stormtrooper guy with all of his stuff on it. We could pull his stuff off if we wanted, but I think it still makes sense to have him with his equipment up there at the front doing lots of damage and hopefully exploding and killing something. I'm of course assuming the Ajax gets killed. We'll see if that even happens. Alright, it's finally time for Wave 3 enemies. Just like the last 2 decks, there's one boss in this deck. We'll see if we hit him. Alright, let's see what the first Wave 3 alien is going to be. It is a bomber. Each time an effect deals this enemy damage, deal 3 damage to the base, 10 attack and 4 life. Wow, this guy's a little scary. It might seem a little hasty, but this 10 could easily kill our Ajax, so I think we are going to begin by getting rid of our Spark Jumper, which lets us attack first. We're going to do 9 damage, which is more than enough to kill this guy, but we don't take any base damage. And more importantly, all these guys just got +2 attack power because the Ajax killed something. So now we slide these aliens down, and we see what the next guy is going to be. It is, oh, it's another bomber. Well, our right-handed player over here has 2 stim packs and a med kit. I think at this point, we might want to use a stim pack. It says 1 troop may heal, and we see that the battlesuit doesn't have any damage, but it says may, so I'm thinking we can actually use this, which will let the battlesuit attack before the bomber once. The other benefit is that this is a medical card, which means we get to heal 2 damage from anybody whenever we play it. Also, it's the 3rd wave, and we know that all heals have +1, so that actually heals all 3 damage off this Stormtrooper before this wave even happens, so I imagine that was worth it. So now our battlesuit attacks the bomber for 9 before the bomber is able to retaliate, so it is gone. And now let's see what is next. It's a Death Spur. This enemy fights the last troop in lane instead of the first. If this enemy survives combat, immediately discard it and deal base 6 damage. Fortunately for us, this battlesuit gave +2 damage to all these guys, so this paratrooper is actually doing 7 damage. Now he is going to die, but there's really not much we can do about that. We could use a med pack to only take 3 damage, but that's still enough for the paratrooper to die. So the paratrooper does 7 damage to our Death Spur here. The Death Spur does 6 damage back. They both get killed, but fortunately the base does not take 6 damage. Alright, and the last alien is, oh, it's the boss, the Eater of Hope. Burn 1 troop in the lane chosen by owner on reveal. This enemy deals damage to the first 2 troops it attacks. Wow, that is really bad. Well, I'm assuming I have to burn it from this lane because he's attacking right here. I can't burn from over there, so that's a real bummer. I think I don't really have a choice. I have to burn this paratrooper. He gets eaten by the Eater of Hope. I'm really not happy about that. This chainsaw fortunately goes into my discard pile. And now this is relatively straightforward. We've got 8 damage. This guy can take 8 damage. The Ajax does 6, 7, 8, 9 damage, so it's going to be enough. So I think they both just attack each other. They both wipe each other out, but at least our base is safe, and goodbye, boss. Alright, let's see how the right-hand player fares. Well, I really hope we don't hit any of those Death Spurs, because that'll hit this Ranger, and then we'll do 6 damage to the base. So with a little luck, we don't get any of those, because that would be a big bummer. And it's a Berserker, a 6/8 This enemy gains additional power equal to the total amount of damage on it. Well, we definitely want to kill this guy in one shot. We don't want him to ramp up damage. Fortunately, our Ajax battlesuit does 6, 7, 8, 9 damage. And considering when Ajax kills something, it buffs the whole row, I think we'll go ahead and discard this assault rifle right from the beginning to go ahead and damage this guy for 9 before he can attack back. Now everybody in this lane gets +2 damage. Alright, let's go ahead and slide these down and see what is next. It is a Hydra. The first time this enemy would be killed, instead place it to the end of the line and heal it to 4 HP. Well, I think we'll go ahead and use our med pack right away to eat 3 damage because of that buff we get for being in the 3rd wave. So we're only going to take 2 damage onto our battlesuit. This is going to be enough to kill the Hydra the first time, and it's going to come back around with only 4 health on it. The next card is going to be another Berserker. Let's go ahead and stim pack up our Ajax here so that he can do damage before the enemy does. So we once again kill this guy before he can come back, and we do 9 damage to him. Alright, the next alien is going to be the Spore Launcher. On reveal, deal the last 2 troops in lane 3 damage. We don't even have any cards left in our hand. Well, that just straight up kills our Ranger, and it hurts our Field Medic pretty well. I think we actually want the Ranger to die. Let's go ahead and use the ability on the Field Medic to absorb 3 damage instead of 2, because once again we have this bonus. It doesn't say it only applies when a card is played, it just says in general. So we eat all that damage, but this Ranger is finally dead. He's going to go into our deck and maybe we can get rid of him. At this point, these two fight. We get to do 9 damage to the Spore Launcher, which is definitely enough to kill it. The Spore Launcher does 7 damage back, which is more than enough to kill this guy, so they're both going to get obliterated. And finally, this Hydra comes back. He's doing 5 damage. He only has 4 life. So let's go ahead and discard the Spark Jumper Rifle to do our 3, 4, 5 damage first in order to kill this guy before it can do any damage back, which sets us up pretty well for the next turn. All in all, that wasn't too bad. We still took no base damage. And our left-hand player looks through the discard pile. They're going to grab another Spark Jumper Rifle and make sure they have one for next turn. Alright, we go from turn 7 to turn 8, and now both players draw up to 6 cards, and then we both get a 6 Xenoxanthem card. Our left-hand player has 15 resources, and the first thing they're going to do is grab one of these drop ships for 3. Now the reason this is great, and I haven't used it before, is because it says place 1 troop card from any discard pile into an empty combat zone. So effectively we can pull back an Ajax that died last turn, bring them into combat for only 3 resources instead of 6. Now let's go ahead and buy one of these Defender suits. They seem pretty great, so that's 6, leaving us with 6 left. Let's go ahead and buy a Hellblaster rocket launcher and a Vindicator armor. I think I'm going to put this on that Defender suit I just made. It'll have 12 life, and if it explodes, it'll do 6 damage to enemies, so that's pretty great. Over here we have 9 resources and a Ranger, which I will gladly get rid of so we can grab one guy for 1 less. Let's go ahead and grab a dropship for the same reason as the other side. That leaves us with 6 left and 1 discount. So it turns out I didn't need the discount, but I don't want the Ranger in my hand anymore. So let's go ahead and grab a Hyperion Assault Battery and throw that into the mix. Alright, that uses all of our Xenoxanthem, but once again, we can go through discard piles and distill down to 6s. And now let's deploy. So I think I'm going to scoot these over. We're going to leave this open so we can use a dropship once combat starts. We can bring the Ajax in here so we can hopefully do some damage early. Let's go ahead and put the Hyperion Assault Battery at the very back. We can use his ability to buff somebody else, and if it hits a Death Spur, then we can kill that before it hits the base. We've still got a Paratrooper in our hand we can bring down if we need to. And let's go ahead and give the Hyperion Assault Battery a Spark Jumper Rifle as well. That way, if it hits a Death Spur, it can survive and stay out. Now let's do the left player. Once again, we'll leave this first slot open for our dropship. I'm going to throw a Defender in the second slot. We'll throw the Vindicator armor on it so that if it gets destroyed, it'll do 6 damage to something. We'll throw a Stormtrooper here, and I think I'm going to give the Stormtrooper this Hellblaster rocket launcher so that it could kill a Death Spur if that comes around, and then we'll go ahead and give this Defender exosuit this Spark Jumper rifle so they can attack first. We've got an empty slot here, but there's a Paratrooper in the right-hand guy's hand, so I think we'll be okay. Here come the aliens. You know, looking at this dropship item, it's not an instant play, which means I believe this is actually used during deployment. So I'm going to go ahead and use it right now. I'm going to discard it. I'm going to go ahead and look through and bring back that Ajax that we want to survive. I'm going to go ahead and place him right there. And because that happens during deployment, I'm going to retroactively move this weapon over here because that's a much better spot for it. And the left-hand side is going to do the same exact thing. Look through, grab our Ajax, and we're going to move this spark jumper over here. All right, now let's do combat. The first alien we meet is going to be a berserker, okay? So this is the one that gets worse and worse as it survives. All right, we really want this Ajax battlesuit to kill something so it buffs everybody for the rest of the round. So the first thing let's do is use this Stormtrooper's ability to do 2 damage to this berserker. So now it's actually doing 8 damage, but if we discard this spark jumper rifle, then we get to attack first. We'll do 6-7 damage, which is enough to kill the berserker before he gets to attack me, and now everybody has +2 power. Now we slide these down, and we look at the next alien. It is going to be a shocker. Uh-oh. Burn all equipment cards on the first troop in lane. Deal that troop 2 damage per equipment burned. Wow, we got lucky. We just used the equipment on this guy. We're also lucky that this battlesuit now does 8 damage instead of 6. That's just enough to kill the shocker. The shocker is going to do 4 damage back here. Alright, let's see who is next. It's going to be a bile slug. If this enemy damages a troop, burn that troop and deal the base 3 damage. That is not good at all. I really don't want this guy to get burned. We have no draw deck left. We're about to reshuffle and I can pull this guy back out again. So I think we're going to use a couple pieces of equipment here. So they're going to go in and attack, but the bile slug does 4 damage over here. I'm going to go ahead and use 2 med packs that'll absorb up to 6 damage so that this Ajax battlesuit does not take any damage in the process, and he's going to do 8 damage back, which is exactly enough to go ahead and kill this bile slug, so we fortunately don't lose the battlesuit. Alright, now the final enemy in the lane is going to be a spore launcher. Deal 3 damage to the last 2 troops. I could do a couple things, but for now it doesn't kill either of them. I'm going to go ahead and put 3 damage on both. Oh, it occurs to me, when I used these 2 med packs, I actually get to heal other units, and this guy had 4 damage on already, so that would actually heal all the damage right off of him. So the spore launcher would kill the Ajax battlesuit, so I think I'm going to go ahead and stim pack the battlesuit up so that he's going to deal 6 damage first. This will go ahead and kill the spore launcher, and wow, we've really cleaned up that row. And over here, we're going to see the first alien we fight is a shocker. Oh, this is not good. We burn all equipment cards on the first troop in lane and deal 2 damage for each equipment burned. Okay, so this spark jumper is burned, and there's no slot for it over there anymore, so I don't think I get to use it. And that's going to do 2 damage right away to our Ajax suit. We have no ways of doing damage before they do damage back, so the only thing we can do to make sure to kill this shocker and get the bonus for the rest of the guys in the lane is to activate the Hyperion Assault Battery, which will do an extra 4 damage whenever a troop does damage to an enemy. So the battlesuit does 6 plus 4 from the Hyperion Assault Battery. That's 10. That's enough to kill the shocker. Now the shocker is trying to do 4 damage back to the battlesuit, which would kill it. However, we can activate this defender suit to make that 4 damage 3 damage, or actually 2 damage again because of the buff we got for having the med center over there. Doing 2 damage here is not going to kill the Ajax suit. So we go to 4 and the shocker is dead, and all these guys now do plus 2 damage. Alright, next up, let's see, we've got a swarm caller. If this enemy is attacked and isn't killed, or it attacks the base, immediately discard it and add 2 enemies face down to the end of the enemy lane. That's not great. Or at least it wouldn't be if we weren't able to just barely kill this guy, because we've got 6 plus 2 because the battlesuit already killed something, and then we can add 2 more for this shock troop over here. That is going to equal 10, and that's just enough to kill this guy. The swarm caller is going to do 2 damage back. However, we've still got an unused field medic. That's going to eat 2 damage that our Ajax suit would have suffered, and he's going to survive. The next alien on the list is a Neurosting Scorpion. Reveal, place this enemy at the end of the enemy line. Anytime a troop would be killed, it and its equipment are instead healed to full and placed at the enemy line. That's not good. So he's going to go back there, and now we're actually going to fight this bile slug. This is the one that damages the base and burns the troop if it damages them, and I think I'm kind of out of toys. Yeah, so unfortunately this bile slug is going to do 4 damage to the Ajax battlesuit. That is going to be, well, enough to kill it, but it actually burns it, so it goes back into the item pile, and then we're going to take 3 base damage because of that. So our base has been at 17 for a while, but now it is down to 14. And I just realized this battlesuit does not actually go back to the pile. It gets stung by the Neurosting Scorpion, goes to the back here, and now we have to fight that as well. Fortunately, the battlesuit did do 8 damage, which will kill this bile slug, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. But now everybody slides forward, and we get to fight this Neurosting Scorpion. Fortunately, the Ajax battlesuit did buff these guys, so the defender does 5 damage. That is enough to kill the Scorpion. It's going to do 4 damage back. And now the Ajax battlesuit is going to fight our guys, and I'm assuming once it's dead, it gets burned because of that bile slug. Our defender does 5 damage to it, which is not quite enough to kill it, and the battlesuit does 6 damage back. The defender is still alive, but it's got to go one more round, and they're just going to hit each other, and that's going to kill both. So the defender is able to finalize this Ajax battlesuit, which gets burned, and the defender takes 6 more damage, which is way more than the 12 it had. Unfortunately, the Vindicator armor, the one that does damage once this unit dies, doesn't really have anything to hit, so that all goes back into my discard pile. Alright, on to the last turn, which is turn 9. If we survive this round with our 14 life on the base, then we're going to win. I'm pretty hopeful. Each player drew their 6 cards, and now they each get a 6 Xenoshyft card. Unfortunately, dropships are now not good for me because I just reshuffled the discard on both of these decks. Our left-hand player only has 6 resources to play with, so I think they're just going to go ahead and grab an Ajax battlesuit. And our right-hand player has 18 resources to play with, so they're going to grab a Hyperion assault battery, which they're going to end up giving over here. That brings them to 12. They're going to grab a stim pack for 2 so that they can make use of the healing effects. And then they're going to buy 2 of these Templar armors, the one that gives you buff for having the weapons. That brings us down to 4. And 1 Hellblaster rocket launcher. Why not? We have 1 remaining. I guess there's no reason not to have a scout drone on the off chance I end up wanting to swap in this last turn. Alright, that was all of our Xenoshyft. Throw this into the discard pile, and now let's deploy. The first thing we'll do is drop an Ajax battlesuit up at the front, and then we're going to kindly ask our right-handed neighbor to give us that Hyperion assault battery. We're going to throw that down at the very end, and we'll throw another Stormtrooper right here in the middle. Now we're going to give out some armor. Let's go ahead and give the Templar armor to the Ajax, and then give the Ajax a chainsaw so that he gets the benefit of +2 on that armor. Let's give the Hyperion assault battery a chainsaw as well. In case we had a death spur, it can hit it and then overlap into the next enemy. And then let's throw a Vindicator assault armor on this guy so that if the Stormtrooper gets killed, it'll explode onto enemies. Alright, now the right-hand player. Alright, over here we're going to put a Templar armor on this guy, Templar armor over here. Let's go ahead and throw a rocket launcher on the assault battery and then a assault rifle over here. Actually, no, let's put the rocket launcher on the Stormtrooper and the spark jumper over here. And then we got some stim packs for fun. And now for the last aliens. Alright, the first alien is going to be a Hydra. This is the one that you have to kill twice. Zooms to the back with 4 health. The Ajax suit right now does 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 damage. That seems more than enough to kill this Hydra, well, sort of the first time. So it's going to go to the back of the line, but it's also going to do 5 damage, unfortunately, to the battlesuit. But that's okay, the battlesuit can take 8 damage. Unfortunately, that does not count for the buff to all these units. We still got to kill something else. So the next alien is going to be, oh, it's another Hydra. At this point, our right-hand player is going to stim pack our Ajax battlesuit. That's going to heal 2 instead of the 1 because of that bonus we get for the med center. So he's now only at 3 damage, but more importantly, he's going to do the damage first. So that's 10 damage to this Hydra, which is going to get taken to the end of the lane. And both of these Hydras already have 4 damage on them. So now let's see what this guy looks like. It's a Death Spur. Oh, just like we were thinking might happen. So this is the one that fights the guy at the end, and if it survives, it disappears and deals 6 damage to the base. Fortunately, over here we have the Hyperion Assault Battery, who is doing 9 damage. And 9 damage is more than enough to kill this Death Spur. Unfortunately, the 6 damage from the Death Spur is enough to kill the battery, and I don't really have... I could stop it from happening, but I think at this point I want to save for the other battle, because this one's looking pretty good. So these guys both go into our discard pile. Alright, now our last mystery alien here, it's going to be, oh gosh, another Hydra. We do have one more stim pack, but I think I want to save this for something else. In fact, that reminded me that first stim pack that we used allows us to heal 3 from another unit. So I think we're going to go ahead and take 3 off of this battery over here. Alright, back to the action. So the battlesuit is going to do 10 damage to this Hydra, which sends it to the end with 4 damage on it. And unfortunately that Hydra does 5 damage back, and it kills this battlesuit. It was never able to actually give the buff to the other guys. But as the Ajax was going down, we're going to go ahead and use the once per turn ability of this chainsaw to overflow damage. So we did 10 to this guy, it took 8, so we'll do 2 more here, which, you know, doesn't really change much. It isn't enough to kill it. Alright, the Stormtrooper is going to go ahead and use its ability to do 2 damage, which just straight up kills this Hydra. And then it's going to do 3 plus 4 is 7, which definitely kills this Hydra. The Hydra is going to do 5 damage back, though. 5 isn't quite enough to kill him. He's got 6 life, so he's going to go ahead and face this last Hydra, do 7 damage to it, and it is going to kill this Stormtrooper, but that's fine. We were able to get through all the enemies. And now for the final battle. I've got a stim pack, and that's pretty much it. So let's see if this is enough to get us through. The first thing we reveal is a bomber. This is the one that's going to do damage every time it gets affected by something. I think we'll go ahead and discard the Spark Jumper Assault Rifle in order to do our 6, 7, 8, 9 damage to the bomber so that we never have to get hit by that 10 damage. And that lets us buff all these guys with +2 power, so we're looking very good. Alright, the next alien is going to be a Swarm Caller. If this is attacked and isn't killed, or if it attacks the base, it's going to spawn a couple enemies face down to the back of the line. Fortunately, we still have one Stormtrooper here, so we can go ahead and put this ability on there to do 2 damage to the Swarm Caller, and then our Ajax Battlesuit is going to do 6, 7, 8, 9 damage, which is enough to kill this, and it's only doing 2 damage back. Now we've got a Berserker. Oh, this guy isn't too bad. We just got to kill him in one shot, which is super easy for us to do. We've got 6, 7, 8, 9, so this guy dies. He is going to do 6 damage to our Battlesuit, which is just enough to kill it. And finally, the last enemy of the game, it is another Swarm Caller. Fortunately, because of our Ajax, we have 3 + 2 + 2 + 4. That's 11 damage. That's just enough to kill the Swarm Caller. It does 2 damage to our Stormtrooper, but we don't mind. We've gotten through the swarm. So the game is over. We win with 14 life left on our base. That's actually really quite good. I was getting kind of worried the first half of the game, but we got some really good abilities and troops, and I don't know, the second half didn't seem too bad. Go team. Ending the game with 14 life out of 30 kind of makes me feel like I cruised into victory there at the end. And it definitely felt that way. My engine, my deck, and all my stuff was really coming together, and I was able to fight things off pretty consistently. Only losing 1 or 2 people and leaving people out on those tracks is very important for just keeping your engine going. Now, as a disclaimer, I cannot be totally sure I play this game completely correctly. There is quite a bit of ambiguity as to when you can play specific effect cards from your hand. And like, for instance, I'm pretty sure I was playing those stim packs correctly, but would not be terribly surprised if somebody came in and said, no, you shouldn't have played them then, you should have played them at a different time, which might have made it a little bit harder because those stim packs were also very important. And in the early game, I felt a lot of pressure. I was taking damage from the very first couple turns. The first 5 or so turns, I think, is really when I got down relatively low into those teens, and then it just kind of stopped. So that first half of the game felt very tense, and I'm interested to see if future games have that tension as well. This is the second time I played it. The first time I played, it was just me, and I got many rules wrong. I wrote a bunch of questions on Board Game Geek afterwards and got clarification from the designer, and I technically won that game, but just barely, and if I'd been playing correctly, I would not have won that game for sure. So I'm 1 out of 2 right now. I'm going to play this game several more times before I really have an opinion as to whether it's too hard or too easy. One thing's for sure, it's pretty cool. You've got all the stuff coming together, and there's lots of stuff to think about. There is potentially too much to think about. Now, I was playing 2 characters at the same time, so I know I missed out on that bonus where at the 3rd wave you get +1 damage for your weapons from that weapons research. I don't think I mentioned that once in the entire wave, not that it actually really mattered. There is a lot of stuff to keep track, and I think when you're actually playing with different brains going at it, keeping track of all the things that pertain to them, I think it will streamline much better. I'm definitely looking forward to playing this with other people, maybe 2 or 3. I'm a little concerned about 4. I'm worried it might go long. I cannot be sure about that yet, again, because I've been playing the roles of both characters at the same time, which makes things take a lot longer, but we'll see how that goes. In the end, I think this was a pretty good playthrough. I wanted a little more tension at the very end, but you know, sometimes that's just how games go, especially when there's randomized cards that are going to come out. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Please let me know if I made any rules mistakes so that I can put annotations in the video for future people watching. And if you'd like to see more videos like this and more reviews and vlogs and all those kind of things I do, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.